If you like what we do here on Skiba News Nation, please like and subscribe, and also share with others so that we can grow the biggest truth-seeking community on the internet. Huge shout out to all of our Patreon supporters. We couldn't do this show without you, so I just wanted to say thank you. And if you want to help support us, go to patreon.com/Skiba News Nation.
What it costs. I want to know what the truth is. And I hope that people, my son, anybody, if my name comes up, whether you like me, whether you agree with me or not, at least you could respect the fact that he's on a quest for truth. He's on a quest for truth.
Welcome to Skiba News Nation, bringing you unfiltered views, news, interviews, discussions, and more. And now, here's your host, Jeremiah Skiba, award-winning musician and son of Rob Skiba.
Hey Skiba News Nation family, welcome to episode 86 of Skiba News Nation, your weekly source of the latest news, controversial topics, conspiracies, forgotten history, and so much more. I'm your host Jeremiah Skiba, and today we'll be talking about Biden trying to sway the stoners' votes, Tucker on bringing back human sacrifices, how to avoid being spied on by Google, bird flu killing Texas cats, AI one step closer to replicating the human brain, the reason for the TikTok ban, an all-new OPA'S corner, and for History's Mysteries, we'll be talking about the many reboots of Mark Zuckerberg and Pranking Scammers, Volume 3. Now, as always, finally together again, my great and insightful co-host, Mr. Jake Grant. Welcome, Jake.
Hello, Jeremiah. I'm glad to be doing this live once again. I know in the past 2 weeks, we've not been able to do one where we're recording actually at the same time. But I'm here joining you. Yes, my voice is in a lower register after all the campfires and singing and dancing and all that, you know, at these big festivals. But I'm super stoked for today's show, man, and get to see you unload my presents that arrived. I'm super excited for you to unbox the special gifts I got for you.
Let's do it. Jake sent me some awesome gifts for my 30th birthday, so I thought I'd unbox it for you guys, or in front of you guys, I should say. So this is the first one. It looks like a shirt. Oh my gosh, that is awesome. Make America great again. And it's like Romeo with the Trump hair. That's great, man. I'm gonna wear that all the time. Lindsay will probably have to tell me to take it off. Okay, and now this one. Excited. I love it. Elvis fans parking. Violators will be all shook up. I love this. I might put this in the studio. That's awesome, man. That's it. Awesome. Cool. I know well, you said there's
one more thing lost in the mail somewhere, but
it'll come.
To it whenever.
I'll post a photo of it on our Skiba News Nation pages. I know you got some great current news for me today, so you want to get into it?
Let's get into it.
By the way, I greatly appreciate all the gifts. Those were great.
I'm glad you liked them. All right, guys. So this week we have a variety of things to cover. I wanted to start off with this video from somebody we've had on the show, Owen Benjamin. And it's just a reminder of how to deal with some of these groupthink activities that are going on in today's world, such as big protests and such. Let's check out this first video.
The checklist I recommend. Number 1, don't join large groups in public defined by anything destructive or angry. That's my advice to anybody listening. A large group of people you don't have control over. Someone screams, lynch them. You're now in that group. You're now in a lynch mob. And a lot of people in that mob did not directly consent to it. Don't get in those mobs. Do what you want, but joining large groups defined by anger, defined by stopping something, is a powder keg. Number 2, watch out for emotional manipulation. If something is intentionally trying to make you feel anger or hopelessness, don't look at it. Oh, but it's waking everyone up. This is my advice to you. I follow these things and I have a very good life. If there's the sad music, the slow motion of a baby's, like a child bleeding, I'm telling you guys, watch out for that shit. Watch out for putting that in your head. Because behind that clip, behind that emotional manipulation is an agenda that you are not aware of. Number 3, don't put your future in the hands of other people. Quote unquote, these people will ruin the world unless they are stopped. That is not true. Man can't ruin the world. Everyone dies, everyone shits. I know that sounds a little vulgar, but hopefully that will wake somebody up. That when someone says, oh, these Zionists, these Jews, they're taking the country, they're taking this, they're ruining the world. No one can ruin the world. It was one of my big spell breaks about the nuclear bomb. No one can press a button and get rid of lakes, rivers, and rain, and growing grass, and a child's smile. They can't. It's a lie, okay? And then people get mad at me. Oh, you're just saying that. You're naive. Don't you know? Take it or leave it, man. I care about people. And this is my advice. Number 4, get sleep, stay hydrated, get in a routine, and be productive. The world is fractal. Before you think about the wall to Mexico or border security, think about the border security with your own body, right? The epidermis, your mouth, your eyes, your ears. What are you letting in to your border? The one border you can actually do something about. Then think about the border in your home. Who is in your home? Who do you let in? Is it healthy? Is it safe? Is it clean? Then think about your fence. When I felt hopeless that Donald Trump would not build a wall, and a lot of you guys were there, in the cold rain of Washington, with super chat money I'm spending on lumber for a fence, I built a fence because I could build my own wall. And I got tremendous strength from that. Okay, before you think about the fence between Texas and Mexico, think about your border, your body, your family, your house, your land, your county, your state. If you can't keep poison out of your own body, hell out of your own eyes, demonic thinking out of your own brain, lies out of your own ears, then who the fuck are you to tell someone how to control a country? You don't have that ability. Start with what you can control. Be productive and be healthy. Treat yourself well. Give yourself the love you give your firstborn son. Why are you buying organic food for your dog, but yet you eat processed food and drink booze? Why do you love yourself less than a dog? That's what you focus on before you heal the world. Isn't that so interesting? How we all have made fun of Jews about Tikkun Olam, about healing the world. The world is broken, we must heal it, right? Why don't you work on yourself, Ira, and your posture? Look at all these quote-unquote Christians trying to heal the world. Well, they're drunk. Well, they're obese. Well, they're liars. Well, they're sad. Well, they watch pornography and violence. I know I'm getting a little intense, but I can see where this is going, and I want you guys safe, sound, and productive. Don't agree to or participate in anything you normally would find morally wrong because you feel it's do or die, you're cornered, it's your only hope. Get that in your head now so you don't fall for it later. A sales technique is, we must do something, stand up, this is our only chance. If we don't act now, everything will fall apart. They're ruining the world, these people, go. Ask yourself, is that action, do you think it's wrong? And if so, don't do it because that's a sales technique. The sun will keep rising and setting. The water will keep falling from the sky. The crops will keep growing, and whenever someone tells you, oh, they're just going to take your farm, they're going to take your kids, they're going to force inject you. Remember when everyone said it was going to be forced vaccinations, and I never went with that? I said they're not going to go door to door and force you to vaccinate. Oh, you're just a shill, Owen. Oh, they're going to force. No, it has to be consensual. But your actions are also consensual. All of chaos magic is pathological. Logos, pathos, ethos. Pathology is emotion. There are no sides, only emotional states, behaviors, and consent. Entities right now in the season of the witch are looking for your approval. They want you to behave like an animal, and they want you to self-destruct. It has to be offered by you. It has to be accepted by you. They cannot take it from you or make you do it. There are no victims, only volunteers. It's the season of the witch. We can all feel it. It will pass. Don't lose your minds. It's an illusion. And a lot of people really like that advice on Twitter. I appreciate that, guys. Yeah, I mean, that's good advice, brother. You want it? Oh, you don't know. They're just going to go. No, they're not. Those are whispers. Those are shadows. This message is why you are censored. Yeah, it is. It's like some of my conspiratorial thoughts are like they wanted me back on Twitter to get everyone so riled up about Jews and Zionism for this event. And that's not a crazy idea for me because they banned me from D Live after January 6th when I was begging everyone to not go. I was telling everyone it was a trap. As it was happening, I was doing commentary on how much of a terrible idea it was. And then they banned me as if I promoted it. Almost like they wanted me to promote it. Same with all these rallies and all this self-destructive behavior and all this, doomer, gloomer bullshit. And I consider myself a good shepherd. I'm a comedian, obviously, but the people that listen to me, I naturally have a paternal instinct, and that's bit me in the ass in the past, where these up people listen to my stream and they think I'm their dad because I care about them more than their actual dad did because their actual dad was psychotic, and then they realize I'm not their dad, and then they troll me trying to destroy my life. So again, I realize that this is not always a good quality of mine, so I try to really stay out of people's lives now and just give advice, but I do have a paternal instinct. Like, I don't want my listeners to hurt themselves or fall for traps. And I'm not gonna give you a promo code to become a gambling addict or any of these ads these guys are doing. I listened to some mainstream pods recently just to see what's going on out there. And the ads, it's like they promote addiction to their own people. It's one thing if it's like beef jerky or Patriot Coffee or like a VPN or something that at least could be positive. I'm not just against ads, but a lot of these ads are deeply nefarious and it poisons their own listeners. Maybe it's not even by design. I like where you're at. I've been thinking about that too. I'm trying to not assume by design. I'm trying to assume it's just what people want. It's beyond design. In spring, the foxes go nuts for your chickens. Maybe the energy rising in the northern realm organically leads to bigger emotional spells among the people. That's 100% true. That's what the quote-unquote elite know that others don't, is the seasons, the real seasons. Like the real calendar, the real, what that stuff in the sky really is. The cycles, the symbols, the seasons. That's why they try and make astrology look stupid, because they know when the best time to launch something is, when there's the most amount of energy in the realm. It's like heating up iron to shape it. So if you have a group of people that knows when to plant, when to harvest, when to kill, when to birth, when collective consciousness has a lot of energy, you can then use that energy any way you want. Like right now, college campuses, election season, finals week, spring, energy's returning to the realm. All this energy is there. And then the witch can use that negatively, or the bard, or like a benevolent shepherd could use it positively. Because energy isn't good or bad. It just is. It's a state of being. It's like electrons will be in an electron shell or a state. It's a behavior. Yeah, potential energy, yeah. The ads on my YouTube are a constant repeat of Tom Brady doing Herc rentals and acting very stupid. He promoted Sam Bankman-Fried. That's what I'm talking about. Tom Brady personally promoted for money a guy who's doing 100 years in prison for financial crime. How do people not own how bad that is? Oh, no one knew. So you don't know what DraftKings does to a young mind? You don't know what online gambling does to a teenager or a dad?
Well, I thought that was a really great video to start off with, theming some of the things we're going to cover this week. Some great advice: stay on the right path. Don't buy into the right-left paradigm. Don't fall into the ditch on either side. But as well as that, focus inwardly first. Work on your life, your family, your house, and then branch outwards, working with your community to build a better alternative outside of this doom and gloom system that we are always talking about, right? All the things that are levied against us, we give power to when we allow that fear to manipulate us. So I wanted to start off with that pretty great clip from Owen there. But with that said, here's some news that I found pretty interesting. Check this out. Geoengineering goes mainstream as Dubai cloud seeding program is being blamed for a historic flood that hit the city. I thought that was very interesting. Here's a post that Mr. Biden put on his Instagram. I'm seeing they're really pushing some of his anti-Trump rhetoric, but I wanted to point out the extreme swing of the two paradigms, right? Joe Biden posts, "This is reprehensible. Donald Trump doesn't trust women. I do," right? And Trump says he wants to let states monitor women's pregnancies so they can know if they've gotten an abortion. And in some conversations I've had around the campfire out here at our festival, there's an interesting dichotomy where people are being shooed into either being pro-life or pro-choice. But the more morally responsible position would be an abolitionist. The point being is there are still elements of being pro-life that actually cement into our society here in the Western world that abortion can still take place at a certain process or a certain period, and it's protecting the concept that women who practice abortion are not actually committing murder to the infant. And it's like the mindset that we can be pro-life and then also encourage the monitoring of pregnancies just feeds in the Conservative Party and those who are pro-life into a techno-monitoring state, which would be the slippery slope of, jumping from one side to the other. One side of the ditch would be we're pro-infanticide, and then the other would be, hey, we're so pro-life that we're going to hook your wife up or to a monitoring device so we can watch every aspect of your pregnancy develop, which that in itself is an infringement on our freedoms. And so it's an interesting way that this topic can be used to push nefarious agendas no matter what side of the equation you're on, whether you're falling for the trap of the modern Moloch or you're falling for the techno monitoring state, justified by, we're pro-life, right? Well, let's watch this next clip, which is a video by Tucker Carlson on why the left wants to bring back human sacrifice. And it's a very interesting one. Check this out.
Is they're inherent. One thing we know about human civilizations is they're inherently religious, even or maybe especially the ones that claim to be secular. Everybody worships something. So as the United States becomes progressively and now aggressively less Christian, that doesn't mean that religion has disappeared. Easter was replaced just the other day by the Biden administration with the worship of transsexualism, Transvisibility Day. So it's a religion, it's just different. And in this case, it happens to be a pagan religion. And that's the direction the United States is speeding right now, toward paganism. The question is, what does that mean? And does it make anybody happier? Very few people have thought about this in any systematic detail. John Daniel Davidson of The Federalist is one who has. In fact, he's written a new book on it called Pagan America, The Decline of Christianity and the Dark Age to Come. And we are happy to have him join us now. John, thanks very much for coming on. So pagan America does a bunch of questions, but does the decline of Christianity, which is demonstrable and obvious and intentional, does that inevitably mean paganism?
In a word, yes. because in the end, there is only one alternative to Christianity, and that is paganism. And we should be clear about our terms, right? When we say paganism, I don't mean that where there's going to be a sudden resurgence of the worship of Zeus or Odin, and an explosion of witchcraft, although that is happening as well.
Yes.
What I mean is a return of the pagan ethos. And the pagan ethos is and always has been a rejection of transcendent or objective truth, right? Pagans were free to divinize and assign divine status to the here and now, to things, to natural phenomena, even to people. And we are returning to that as the world becomes re-enchanted from its sort of secular hiatus that we've been on for the past century or so. And what that means in America, of course, is a radical moral subjectivity that we see in the trans movement, that we see in Black Lives Matter and critical race theory, that we see all across our society asserting itself now, that rejects what are fundamentally Christian claims about the human person, our relationship to one another, and our relationship to God.
So it seems like one of the ways, maybe the main way, that Christianity is different from all other religions in a practical sense is that it rejects human sacrifice being a constant throughout all recorded history. In every non-Christian culture, human sacrifice is at the center. So as Christianity recedes, should it surprise us that abortion, euthanasia, killing, war, human sacrifice has come to the center of our culture?
Not at all. In fact, I deal with this at length, specifically with abortion and euthanasia as the most obvious manifestations of the return of human sacrifice in the new pagan cults. And it's interesting when you look at the justification for something like abortion, back after Roe v. Wade and even into the 1980s, the justification was, this isn't a human being, this is just a clump of cells, you're not taking a human life, and these fetuses aren't viable. And as medical technology progressed in the 80s and 90s and over the past 25 years, you see the justification change. Advances in medical technology made the original justification make no sense. It could not be maintained that this was just a clump of cells. We all knew, and we all know undoubtedly now, beyond any doubt, objectively, an unborn human being is a human being.
Right.
And so the justification has changed from it's a clump of cells to safe, legal, and rare to shout your abortion. And so now you have a positive defense of abortion as a good, in fact, as a moral good that we should brag about and we should champion. And that is not a Christian value. That is a pagan value. And it's reasserting itself now in a modern context.
Well, I have noticed this. I haven't thought it through to the impressive degree that you have, but I noticed that the justification for abortion went from essentially rational, right? So if the fetus is not a human being, that's no different from an appendectomy. And I don't agree with that, but that is a rational defense of abortion. It's not a big deal because the question of taking life doesn't enter into it. But once you give that up, then what is the justification? Is there a justification, publicly declared justification for taking another human life?
Well, there is now, and it's very pagan indeed. The justification now is that it is the will of the mother that determines the humanity of the child. So we have abortion laws in this country where a child of the same gestation, two children of the same gestational age in two different states, one has to be saved if born prematurely. All the medical technology, all the medical expertise that can be brought to bear to save that child's life must be brought to bear. Same gestational age child born in another state can be killed with impunity. The only thing that determines the humanity of this person is the desire of the mother to have the child or not have the child. And that is also quintessentially pagan, because in a pagan society, what determines right, what is morally correct, is based on a power dynamic. Those who have power do what they want to those who have no power, and that is their right. That is their God-given right to enslave or kill or rape or abuse anyone who they have power over. And that's the dynamic we see returning now. It may start with a rational or secular justification, as we saw with abortion, but as we're seeing now in places like Canada with euthanasia, it quickly moves into a power dynamic where people who are inconvenient are simply being killed. And there's very little justification on a Christian moral basis for it. Instead, there's a pagan moral justification, which is all about power and force and will.
And there's a delight there. I mean, you watch the Treasury Secretary, Janet Yellen, who I consider a criminal based on crimes that she has committed and never been punished for. But whatever you think of Janet Yellen, her job has nothing to do with abortion. She's the Treasury Secretary. And she comes out sort of it's almost like this non sequitur. It's like, why are you talking about abortion? And tells us that it's just a good thing. It's just a good thing. And if you want to help this country, you'll have more abortions. And she's thrilled to do it. So I look at that and I'm like, there's a supernatural component here. There's got to be, because there's no rational justification for it.
Yeah, exactly. There's no rational justification to allow healthy young people who are suffering from depression or maybe substance abuse addiction to kill themselves, or to have physician-assisted suicide.
Right.
And yet that's what's happening in Canada right now. And they went down the slippery slope. It only took them a few years to go from only people with terminal illnesses to anyone who's depressed and lonely. And maybe also people who are costing the national health system a lot of money. Maybe those people too, we can get rid of them. And there's actually, some government studies in Canada have actually calculated how much the National Health Service will save by expanding their euthanasia program. This is really dark stuff. And we have to understand it for what it is. It's the replacing of Christian morality with pagan morality. And the transformation of a republic of self-governing citizens into what essentially is a slave empire, where those with power, the ruling class, rules over an underclass that is subject to that power. And that's a very different dynamic. It means a total transformation of American society. And I don't think that many people have really started to wrap their heads around the implications of that for all of us.
Well, in Canada, I mean, you have the state murdering its own native population, overwhelmingly the Christian population of Canada, people whose ancestors were Christian, churchgoers, and then replacing them with people who are not Christians from other countries. So it's hard not to see that as part of it. I mean, that's just a fact. I mean, I guess you could interpret it in a different way, but it's the Christian Canadians who are getting killed by the state. I think that's just true.
I mean, it was also, we saw with this this hoax about the mass graves at the Indigenous schools as well, that unleashed a flurry of violence against Catholic churches in Canada. Dozens of churches were burned down, vandalized, destroyed, and the Prime Minister encouraged it. He cheered it on. Yes. And it was the same thing with the Black Lives Matter protesters here in the summer of 2020. The regime did nothing. They encouraged it. They wanted it to happen. They were willing to countenance violence in the streets and the use of raw force to advance their agenda and cement their rule, and then unequally apply the force of the state against Christians, against pro-life protesters, against people who were in the vicinity of the Capitol on January 6th. This is a pattern that we're going to see repeated more and more often as we get away from this idea of traditional Christian morality. That is to say, individual rights, rule of law, consent of the governed. These aren't things that just exist in like a secular liberal utopia. They depend on an actual Christian society to sustain them. And when Christianity, declines or we enter into a post-Christian era, those things are going to go away. Yeah. Like they can't sustain themselves on their own. And I don't think that we appreciate just how much we rely on our Christian inheritance for like our specifically American way of life.
So I think that's really insightful what you just said, but it's also the opposite of what we were promised. So what we were promised, as always, was liberation from the strictures of this ancient religion that kept people from dancing and playing cards and having premarital sex and like any kind of fun at all, right? It was the footloose model. But what we got was not liberation. The country doesn't seem freer or...
All right. So very interesting, as always, understanding how there seems to be these ancient ripples of history repeating itself. And in our culture today, seeing how, infanticide and abortion is bringing back the blood cults of, ancient times past, right? Well, anyways, here's another video I wanted to share with you guys. I'm not going to actually show the video, but I wanted to tell you about it. It's a fantastic interview / debate that happened with Witsit Gets It and Harrison on InfoWars. And I really have grown fond of Witset's content. He is probably one of the most intellectually empowered individuals right now in the flat Earth movement, being able to stand toe to toe with doctorate level scientists and NASA fanboys, right? Breaking down how we can question cosmology as we've been presented it. And I would highly encourage anybody to go and check out this debate and just see also maybe his debate reviews where he breaks down how there's a running around the topic when it comes to Harrison's position. But this is big news, and I think it's interesting to see the position defended so well. And so I just wanted to tell everybody about this cool debate that I caught recently, and to promote Witset's channel. Witset Gets It. He's got some fantastic content. Highly respect him. I'd love to have him on the show sometime. So if he ever sees this clip or is interested, we would love to have you on the show, Austin.
Absolutely.
All right. So here's another clip. Very interesting. Tyson Foods has dumped millions of pounds of pollutants into the U.S. waterways. Very interesting. This has just recently come out. Check this clip out.
Tyson Foods, the nation's second largest meat producer, dumped millions of pounds of toxic chemicals into American waterways over the last 5 years. That's according to a report released Tuesday by the Union of Concerned Scientists. Researchers say Tyson flushed 371 million pounds of pollutants into waterways from 2018 to 2022. These include nitrogen, phosphorus, chloride, oil, and cyanide, making waterways unsafe, endangering wildlife, and creating health risks for people ranging from respiratory issues to neurological damage and cancer. The study said Tyson dumped the pollutants with 87 billion gallons of wastewater, which also included blood, bacteria, and animal feces, into American lakes and rivers, directly impacting sources of drinking water and recreational lakes. Tyson's pollution from 41 slaughterhouses and plants was spread across 17 states, with nearly half the pollutants released in Nebraska, Illinois, and Missouri. A separate analysis in 2016 revealed Tyson Foods is responsible for dumping more pollutants by volume into U.S. waters than companies like Exxon and Dow Chemical. How was Tyson able to do this? Many meat processing facilities are exempt from certain water pollution regulations. Meat processing plants are typically required to obtain permits that specify the limits and conditions for their wastewater discharges. The EPA oversees the enforcement and works with state environmental agencies to ensure compliance. But the EPA admits it doesn't have enough resources to monitor every act of pollution by meat processing plants. And when violations do occur, companies are often able to settle legal challenges and make minimal changes to their operations. The EPA now says it is weighing new regulations. Tyson has yet to respond to the report. The North American Meat Institute, which represents large meat processors like Tyson, said meat and poultry companies spend significant resources to comply with the EPA's wastewater discharge limitations guidelines. The organization argued more regulations could mean $1 billion in added costs and potential layoffs. I'm Jack Almer with Straight Arrow News, and to keep up with this story and more, download our SAN News app.
All right. Now, we all know that these big corporate types don't always have the interests of the lay person in mind, and it's demonstrated with how they're polluting everything that we, whether it's the pollutions in our food or the toxins in the food, or the pollutions that they're dumping into the water. It's all profit-based because it costs a lot of money to dispose properly of these pollutants. And so the easy route is, of course, to poison us all, right?
Right.
All right, here's another clip I think is interesting. We've seen Biden talk about it quite often. He's trying to sway the stoners for election year. It looks like the U.S. is possibly going to finally reclassify marijuana as a less dangerous drug. Check this clip out.
Historic step towards easing marijuana restrictions. The DEA today proposed reclassifying cannabis from a Schedule 1 to a Schedule 3 drug. Crown 4's Rob Nesbitt spoke with the CEO of the National Cannabis Industry Association. He joins us live here in studio with more on how this change will benefit dispensaries. Rob.
Noel, owners of cannabis stores will tell you how hard the industry is hit by high taxes. It's part of the reason why the 420 event in Golden Gate Park was canceled this year. Today's announcement from the federal government will help ease tax burdens. The cannabis industry celebrated a big win Tuesday when the U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration announced its plan to move cannabis from Schedule 1 status to Schedule 3. CEO of the National Cannabis Industry Association, Aaron Smith, says for years, marijuana has been viewed federally as having no medical value and a high potential for abuse.
It seems absurd, but since the 70s, cannabis has been a Schedule 1 substance alongside drugs like heroin and LSD.
President Biden called for the review back in 2022. Reclassifying does not legalize cannabis federally, but it would allow pharmaceutical companies to get involved with selling drugs in states where it is legal. It will also remove a tax code called 280E on legal cannabis businesses.
Marijuana businesses are unable to deduct things like their rent, their payroll, their marketing expenses, their compliance costs, the cost of the security cameras in their facilities.
Spark owns 6 dispensaries in the Bay Area, and CEO Eric Pearson says 280E has limited investors from taking cannabis seriously. He hopes becoming a Schedule 3 drug will change that.
When that gets eliminated, it frees up capital. It makes investors more interested in investing in cannabis companies, and investment capital comes in, which helps the industry, which is otherwise struggling from other taxes.
The proposal must still be reviewed by the White House Office of Management and Budget before it can join the same classification as Tylenol. The National Cannabis Industry Association wants Congress to go even further by removing cannabis from the Controlled Substances Act.
But it doesn't address issues such as lack of access to banking services, the mass incarceration around marijuana, and a myriad of issues that are resultant of the conflict between state and federal law.
I asked Smith when he thinks the reclassification could go into effect if passed by the White House. He predicts changes before the November election. Reporting in studio, I'm Rob Nesbitt, Crown 4 News.
All right, very interesting. Now, my personal opinion on the topic is that pharmaceutical companies have for so long tried to demonize this plant that grows out of the earth because it could replace everything from Advil to Vicodin, right? And the concept that it's now starting to be transferred from a no-no forbidden prohibitionist state to now they're starting to legalize it. You're seeing the nefarious corporations come in and now manipulate this plant, which the founding fathers grew in abundance, right? Hemp was one of the staple agricultural crops in the United States, and of course it is used as a medicine in a lot of good ways. It can be abused, of course, as alcohol itself and many other things can be abused, but I do think it is interesting that this is happening during election year and you're having Biden really trying to jeer on the crowd, hey, look, I'm cool, guys, I'm gonna make it totally legal, Let's not be so harsh on the stoners, so that we, everybody who's pro marijuana starts voting for Biden. Whatever. It's just a ploy. But anyways, next story here: Biden admin accuses Israeli military of human rights violations in stunning condemnation. So, I guess those pro-Palestinian protests are starting to sway the politics. It says here, the U.S. found 5 units of the Israel Defense Force responsible for individual incidents of gross violations of human rights. So feeding flames to the fire with the whole pro-Palestinian, anti-Israel movement. And you see early on, there was a strong defense of Israel's actions in Gaza. And now you're seeing kind of the political wind pushing our administration to renege on its partnership with Israel and to point out the violation of human rights that may be happening, even though we know that this is something that happens during war, and I'm sure the United States is guilty of violating human rights in many iterations in our wars in the Middle East as well. And so the concept being war is bad, there's an agenda to push forward maybe World War III or just to stir the pot, But as we saw in that video that Owen was talking about, we can't let the group mob mentality, even though it has this plastered image of being a right cause, lead us into a wrong path, right? So I think it's very interesting, the turntable nature as the Biden administration is now jumping on this bandwagon, pointing out what very likely could be human rights violations. I'm not denying that, but it is interesting how all the protests and pro-Palestinian movements are starting to sway our government, which was once very firm supporting Israel. Farmers warn food aisles will soon be empty because of crushing conditions. We are not in a good position. The United Kingdom is facing dire food shortages, forcing prices to skyrocket, and experts predict this is only the beginning. So we have a variety of things contributing to this, of course. But when you have the farmers going, hey, y'all, we're not going to be eating, you should probably, start preparing yourself, growing your own food, and finding alternative means to bring that dinner to your dinner table.
Mm-hmm.
All right, guys, here's another interesting one. Chinese scientist who first published COVID sequences stages protest after being locked out of lab. Very interesting. So the first scientist to publish a sequence of the COVID-19 virus staged a sit-in protest outside of his lab after authorities locked him out of the facility. Zhang Yang wrote in an online post Monday that he and his team had been suddenly notified that they were being evicted from their lab. I don't know, probably for the best. I won't leave, I won't quit. I'm pursuing science and the truth. I think what's interesting is I believe this doctor is the one who is credited with associating the virus released with a lab-grown kind of amalgamation of experiments, right? Mm-hmm. So it's almost repercussions for him exposing that this is a man-made release that affected the world, or convinced the world to affect itself, really. Here's another clip from Tucker Carlson, which I think was very interesting. He's expanding on some of the things he's probably learned on his trip to Russia. But he covers Klaus Schwab, transgenderism, and AI, and ties it in with the Russian philosopher Aleksandr Dugin. So let's check out this clip.
Aleksandr Dugin is a 62-year-old Russian academic philosopher. He spent his life in Moscow. He was an anti-Soviet dissident as a young man. And now he is famous the world over, in the English language press anyway, as, quote, Putin's brain. But he is not a political figure here in Russia. He is, once again, a philosopher. And his ideas are deeply offensive to some people. In August of 2022, his only daughter was murdered in Moscow when a car bomb killed her. U.S. intelligence says she was murdered by the Ukrainian government, and we take that at face value. But what's interesting is that, once again, Aleksandr Dugin is not a military leader. He's not a close daily advisor to Vladimir Putin. He is a writer who writes about big ideas. And for this, his books have been banned by the Biden administration in the United States. You cannot buy them on Amazon, banning books in the United States because the ideas inside are too dangerous. He's often described, again, in the English language press as far right. We'll let you assess. But we wanted to talk to him about some of his ideas, these ideas that are so dangerous that his only daughter was murdered over them, and his book's been banned in the United States. And so we're happy to have him join us now. Mr. Dugin, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me, and welcome to Moscow.
Of course, thank you. So we were talking off camera. Actually, we're having a conversation that we were not going to film. Just interested to meet you. But what you said was so interesting that we got a couple of cameras and put this together. And my question to you is, what do you think is happening in the English language countries? And I said, all of them. United States, Canada, Great Britain, New Zealand, Australia, all at once decided to seemed to turn against themselves. This great turmoil. And some of the behavior seemed very self-destructive. And where do you think, as an observer, that comes from?
So I could just suggest express my reading of that. It demands a little passion. So I think that everything started with individualism. So individualism, that was a wrong understanding of the human nature, of the nature of man. When you identify individualism with the man, with the human nature, you cut all the relations to everything else. So you have a very special idea of the subject, philosophical subject, as individual. And everything started in the Anglo-Saxon world with Protestant reform and with nominalism. Before that, nominalist attitude that there are no ideas, only things, only individual things. So individual, it was the key and is still key concept that was put in the center of liberal ideology. And liberalism, as in my reading, it is a kind of historical and cultural and political and philosophical process of liberation of individual, of any kind of collective identity, collective or that transcends individual. And that started with refuse of Catholic Church as collective identity, of empire, Western empire as collective identity. After that, it was a revolt against a national state as collective identity in favor of purely civil society. After that, there was a big fight of the 20th century between liberalism, communism, and fascism. And liberalism has won once more.
Yes.
So, and after the fall of the Soviet Union, there was only liberalism. And Francis Fukuyama has pointed out correctly that there are no more any ideologies except of liberalism. And liberalism, that was liberation of this individual from any kind of collective identity. There were only two collective identities to liberate from. Gender identity, because it is collective identity. You are man or woman collectively, so you could not be alone. So liberation from gender, and that has led to transgenders, to LGBT, and new form of sexual individualism. So sex is something optional. And that was not just deviation of liberalism, that was necessary elements of implementation and the victory of this liberal ideology. And the last step that is not yet totally made is liberation from human identity, humanity optional. And when now we are choosing, or you in the West, you are choosing the sex you want as you want. And the last step in this process of liberalism, implementation of liberalism, will mean precisely the human optional. So you can choose your individual identity to be human, not to be human. And that has a name: transhumanism, posthumanism, singularity, artificial intelligence, Klaus Schwab, Kurzweil, or Harari. They openly declare that is inevitable future of humanity. So we arrive to the historical terminal station that we finally, 5 centuries ago, we have embarked in this train, and now we are arriving at the last station. So that is my reading. And when all the elements, all the phases of that, you cut the tradition with the past. So you are no more Protestant, you are secular, atheist, materialist. You are no more national state that served to liberate from empire. And now national state becomes at its turn obstacle. You are liberating from national state. Finally, family is destroyed in favor of this individualism. And the last things, the sex that is already almost overcome. Sex optional, and in gender politics, there is only one step to arrive to the end of this process of liberation, of liberalism. That is the abandoned human identity as something prescribed. So to be free from to be human, to have the possibility to choose to be or not to be human. And that is the agenda, political, ideological agenda of tomorrow. That is why how I see Anglo-Saxon world that you have asked of. I think that is just the vanguard of this process, because that started with Anglo-Saxons empirism, nominalism, Protestantism, and now you are ahead as Anglo-Saxon, more devoted to liberalism than any other European.
So what you're describing is clearly happening, and it's horrifying. But it's not the definition of liberalism I have in mind when I describe myself as what we say in the United States as a classical liberal, right? So you think of liberalism as individual freedom and choice from slavery, right? So the options as we conceived them as I was growing up were the individual who can follow his conscience, say what he thinks, defend himself against the state, versus the statism, the totalitarianism embodied in the government that you fought against, the Soviet government. And I think most Americans think of it that way. What's the difference?
Very interesting question. I think that is the problem is in two definitions of liberalism. There is old liberalism, classical liberalism, yes, and new liberalism. So classical liberalism was in favor of democracy. Democracy understood as the power of majority, of consensus, of individual freedom that should be combined somehow with the freedom of other. And now we have totally the next station already, next phase, new liberalism. Now it is not about the rule of majority, but it is about the rule of minorities. It is not about individual freedom, but it is about wokeism. individualism. So you should be so individualistic that you should criticize not only the state, but individual, the old understanding of individual. So you are invited to liberate yourself from individuality, to go further in that direction. So I have spoken once with Fukuyama, Francis Fukuyama on TV, and he has said before democracy has meant the rule of majority, and now it is about the rule of minorities against majority, because majority could choose Hitler or Putin. So we need to be very careful with majority, and majority should be taken under control, and minorities should rule over majority. Majority, it is not democracy, it's already totalitarianism, and now we are not about defense of the individual freedom, but about prescription to be woke, to be modern, to be progressive. It is not your right to be or not to be progressive. It is your duty to be progressive, to follow this agenda. So you are free to be left liberal. You are no more is free enough to be right liberal. You should be left liberal, and that is a kind of duty. It is prescription. So liberalism fought during its history against any kind of prescription, and now it at its turn became totalitarian, prescriptive, not free as it was in some.
And do you believe that was inevitable? That process that was always going to happen?
I think that is. I perceive here a kind of logic. So a kind of logic that is not just perversion or deviation. You start with one thing. You want to liberate individual. When you arrive at the point when it is possible, it is realized. So you need to go further. So and you start to liberate yourselves from this time from old understanding of individual in favor of more progressive concepts. So you could not stop here. That is my vision. So if you say, "Oh, I prefer old liberalism," they would say the progressives. They would say it is not about old liberalism. It is about fascism. You are a defender of traditionalism, conservatism, fascism. So stop here. Either be progressive liberal or you are done, or we will cancel you. That is what we observe.
Well, it's certainly what we're living. And to see self-described liberals ban your book, which is not a manual for bomb making or invading Ukraine, it's these are philosophical works, tells you that it's not, of course, it's not liberal in any sense. I wonder, though, when you reach the point when the individual can no longer liberate himself from anything, when he's just not even human, what's the next step after that?
That is described in the pictures, American pictures, films, in many ways. So I think that that all the science fictions, almost all of the 19th century, were realized in the reality in the 20s. So there is nothing more realistic than science fiction. And if you consider Matrix or Terminator, you have so many more or less coinciding version of the future with the post-human or human optional situation or artificial intelligence. Hollywood has made many films. I think they portray correctly reality of the close future. So, for example, if we consider the man, the human nature, as a kind of rational animals, so you could now with our technology you could produce them. So you could create rational animals or combine them or construct them. And artificial intelligence, strong artificial intelligence, neural network plus huge database, it is a kind of king of the world, I would say, that could not only manipulate but create realities, because the realities are just images, just sensations, just feelings. So I think that post-humanist futurism is a kind of not only realistical description of the very possible and probable future, but as well a kind of political manifest. So it is not that is kind of visual thinking, and the fact that you have no bright traditional future described in the films. I don't know any movie of the future in the West made about return to traditional life, the prosperity, the families with many children. Everything is quite in shadow, quite black. So if you're used to paint everything black and the future especially, so this black future once arrives, and I think that is the fact, the same fact that we have no other option, either Matrix or artificial intelligence or something, or a Terminator. So the choice is already outside of the limits of humanity, and that is not just fantasy. I think that is a kind of political project, and it is easily imagined because we have seen the films. They follow more or less close to this progressive, I would say, agenda.
So I've asked you no questions about Russia or Russian politics, and I'm not going to, because I think it's so interesting to see your perspective on countries that you don't live in, because we do gain insight, I think, from the view of outsiders. My last question to you is, how do you explain this phenomenon I've noticed where for over 70 years, a group of people in the West, in the United States, liberals, effectively defended the Soviet system and Stalinism, and many personally participated in Stalinism, spied for Stalin, supported him in our media. In the year 2000, and they loved Boris Yeltsin because he was drunk, but in the year 2000, leadership of this country changed, and Russia became their main enemy. So after 80 odd years of defending Russia, they hated Russia. What was that? Why the change?
I think that first of all, Putin is traditional leader. So Putin, when he came to power, from the very beginning, he started to extract our country, the Russia, from the global influence. So he started to contradict to global progressist agenda. And these people who supported Soviet Union, they were progressists, and they are now progressists. So they have felt that now they were dealing with someone who doesn't share this progressist agenda, and who tried, and with success, to restore traditional values, sovereignty of the state, Christianity, traditional family. That wasn't evident from the beginning, from outside. But when Putin insisted more and more on this traditional agenda, I would say, on the particularity and speciality of the Russian civilization as some special type of world vision that had and has now very little similarities with the progressist ideals. So I think that they have discovered, they have identified in Putin precisely what Putin is. So he is a kind of leader, political leader, defending traditional values. So only recently, 1 year ago, Putin has made a decree of the political defense of traditional values. That was turning point, I would say. But observers from the progressive camp in the West, I think they have understood that from the beginning of his rule correctly. So this hatred is not just casual, something casual or some mood. It is not.
It's not casual. It's very serious.
So it's metaphysical. So if your main task and main goal is to destroy traditional value, traditional family, traditional states, traditional relations, traditional beliefs, and someone with the nuclear weapon, that is not smallest, the least, but the last but not least argument. Someone with nuclear weapon to stand strong, defending traditional value, you are going to abolish. I think they have some basis for this Russophobia and the hatred for Putin. So it is not just by the chance. It's not some irrational change from Sovietophilia to Russia phobia. It's something deeper, I would say. It's my guess.
It's clearly something deeper. We felt it was important for your ideas to get an airing in English in the United States, simply because we believe in the open airing of ideas. I guess we're liberals that way. So we're grateful that you took the time. Mr. Dugin, thanks.
Thank you very much.
All righty. And so in previous episodes, I know I've covered the concept that you are being spied on almost all the time, even if you take the battery out of your phone. Most phones, you can't do that anymore, but I think it's very interesting. But I wanted to share a little bit of an action that you can take in turning off the voice and audio and recording process that Google can use to monitor you, that you give permission for them to do. And it's always good to realize that a lot of the things we engage with, we give permission unwittingly, unknowingly, and that little terms of service thing you click on when you download an app, you don't realize what you agree to. So check out this next video, which is all about how to turn off the monitoring on your Google account.
Here's how to stop giving Google permission to listen to your conversations. Go to your Google account and click on Manage Google Account. Once you get there, click on Data and Privacy. Scroll down, and when you find Web and App Activity, click on that. Once you get there, make sure you uncheck this box where it says Include Voice and Audio Activity. Be sure to uncheck this box where it says Include Chrome History and Activity from Sites. They definitely don't need that information for sure. They've actually added another one, Include Visual Search History. You don't want that either, so uncheck that box as well. Last but not least, make sure you delete all the history that they have on you.
Wow. While I understand that below the surface of our technology lurking can be monitoring programs and spy software, which very likely is the case, at least we can take these steps in the areas that we've allowed and given permission to the services that we use. We can uncheck those boxes and basically say, I don't want you to listen to me, Google, even though I know you probably still are. But I thought it was, a proactive thing to share. Anyways, this next thing I would like to share, Jeremiah, I'd love to get your comment on. It It's a serious matter, really. It's the bird flu affecting cats in Texas. It's a pretty serious matter. The strain of the bird flu that is killing cats in Texas is causing brain hemorrhaging and blindness. So, very interesting. Came out as recent as April 30th. The information I'm about to share with you is very alarming. According to this university, even though there are some minor differences, feline lungs are structured just like human lungs. And about 24 farm cats were stricken with the H5N1 bird flu after drinking milk from infected cows, leaving some blind and killing more than half. Very tragic story there. But you can see the association with cat lungs and human lungs that are being made, and how they're, gearing up for another viral flu outbreak. And of course, this is used to, one, cause people to go get their but also I thought it was, pretty serious in terms of our, our show mascot. We got to watch out for Charlie. So I just wanted to let you know, Jeremiah, we gotta keep Charlie away from those infected cow milks. You know what I'm saying?
You know what's interesting is cats are allergic to milk. Charlie, look at the camera. Look at the camera. He's not going to do it. Oh, there he is. But cats are allergic to cow milk. And so they always showed in cartoons of cats drinking milk and stuff. But you can give a little bit to them, but I'm always hesitant to do it because they're allergic to it. But I'm not going to lie, I've let them, lick the cereal bowl every once in a while, so it is very concerning. Is it causing hemorrhages and the other things in humans or the cats?
I think what they're trying to correlate here is that the flu that's breaking out there in Texas is causing it in cats, and then they're making the association that this could jump to humans, as a, hey, flu, watch out. Whether this is just a fear-mongering tactic from one isolated instance or whatever, it is, something that came up on my news feed, and since it was dealing with cats in Texas, I was like, man, I gotta warn Charlie.
Yeah, he is warned. He's sleeping, but
no milk for you, buddy.
Yeah, no more milk. For 2028, when I run for president, we must treat our cats better. That's what I will run on. And if anybody's with me in the comment section, let me know.
I'm looking forward to seeing your rallies, bro. It'll be like 1,000 old cat ladies with 1,200,000 cats each.
It'll be like,
and it'll just be in this massive. It'll be a massive stadium of meowing.
Yeah, and hairballs.
Oh man! All right, so we got another one here. Just quick running through these. Scientists measure X-rays from a particular dangerous upward lightning for the first time. So I thought that was pretty cool. Just the fact that lightning can come upwards is cool. I remember some earthquakes happening in South America last year we covered, and it was causing lightning, like from the earthquakes discharging energy.
I understand.
But I thought that was cool.
My understanding is that lightning always starts from the ground going up to the clouds. It never starts from the clouds going down to the ground.
That's what I was taught too.
Ooh. Well, maybe
Mandela effect.
I mean, I could. Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, when I look, well, I feel like I've seen lightning come out of the sky and strike stuff, right?
It's because it looks like it's coming down, I think, but I don't know.
Yeah, it looks like it's coming down, but it goes so fast, and you've got negative and positive. So, good old Earth is the ground, and the clouds are where all the positive ions are. And if you look at electricity, it always goes from ground to positive. So.
Yeah, thank you for breaking down how lightning works. That's really, I mean, now I guess we apparently have the ability to measure the X-rays coming from them.
That's crazy.
Very cool. Well, here's another one for you. We're one step closer to replicating the human brain in regards to AI. Scientists from Netherlands and South Korea have just built a device dubbed the ionotronic memristor, the ionotronic memristor, memory resistor, or in other words, an artificial synapse. This device, just a little bit wider than a human hair, mimics the part of the brain that helps us think and learn. This isn't the first time scientists have tried to tackle creating a device that can resemble the thinking human brain, but this one's special because it's not built like the others. It's built like our brains. So as they develop this technology, you can see the implementation of AI computing power with the hardware that mimics the human brain, which is very, very interesting.
Very scary.
All right, here's skip this one. Let's see. Just recently, there's been massive tornadoes all across the Midwest, across the Plain States. Tornado update, at least 32 dead, dozens injured across 9 states. So this has just recently happened, past few days. So reach out to your friends and loved ones if they were affected. I would suggest trying to help them out. But anyways, yeah, pretty crazy how storms can come through and be so destructive, and your whole life can change in just a single night, right?
Yep.
But apparently it hit places in Arkansas, Indiana, Alabama, Mississippi. We were very blessed here to miss it in central Missouri, where we're doing our festival, finishing up the Feast of Unleavened Bread. We have a giant circus tent set up, and while there were strong storms coming through, it did not really damage anything other than blowing a couple little gazebo tent things around. But it was pretty cool, Jeremiah. I wish you were there. We were doing our Simply Prodigal set, and I didn't realize how many of our songs reference singing and jamming in the storm, or worshiping the Most High in the storm, or the storm of life. And so we were in the middle of a lightning storm, and the wind was blowing, and we're jamming in this big tent, and I'm just like singing, we'll praise you in the storm, and it was a cool moment.
That's cool.
I hope you can make it out to one of these. It would be super sweet to have you out.
Yeah, it'd be fun. I'll have to figure that out.
All right, guys. One or two final little things here. Here is a person who was on the docket politically, who apparently got an inside scoop on the TikTok ban. Check this clip out.
From the horse's mouth. I'm not supposed to do this. As you know, I'm on the ballot in November in Ohio House of Representatives. I'm a Democrat. I was privy to information yesterday, which is the actual reason that the parties have come together, surprisingly, on the TikTok ban. And here it is. Corporate money cannot influence TikTokers like myself. Corporate money can't control my message. And the big players, the senators, the U.S. senators, the U.S. House of Representatives, those are the people that are setting the laws of the land, which benefit corporations. The real reason is those big money donors don't want freedom of speech. They don't want any candidates to come from nowhere to get 200,000, 400,000, 1 million followers. And they cannot control their message, because information and the freedom of this app allows you to reach millions of people. There's 140 million people on this app in the United States. They cannot control the narrative. So they're telling their politicians that they own, Democrat and Republican, you got to get rid of this. Otherwise, the money we're giving you is wasted. They can't control the message. I can say what I want. I'm not getting big donor money. I can say what I want. That terrifies them. The other second part of this is it is the greatest labor organizing tool ever created. That terrifies the plutocracy of this country. It is the age of corporations. Their influence is making the laws. The government is run by corporations. We all know that. That's why I'm running for office. I'm tired of this. This is not the way it's supposed to be. But that's the reasons. Big money donors to the big players do not want this. They want all the down ticket candidates to be on the same page. We hate TikTok. We hate that. No, that's not it. I'm telling on them. This is Republicans and Democrats. Big corporate donors do not like TikTok. They cannot control the message, and people can come from nowhere and get into power, and they have no say over it. And unions organizing. You heard it here. The TikTok ban is not about cybersecurity. I can't even say it. Cheers.
Corporate money cannot influence TikTokers like myself. Oh man, I know we covered it briefly. I didn't really go into detail on why, but rather the how-to of branching outside of your media box. But anyways, what do you think, Jeremiah? Why do you think they're coming after TikTok, bro?
Because they can't control it, right?
Exactly.
Because you can, well, I don't know, our TikTok, the Zach who runs it, we keep getting videos taken down. So I think they're already starting to censor it, but I think that's why for so long they've been trying to get it down, because videos do make it through and then reach millions of eyes. And lately I've heard there have been 2 that I know of TikTokers that mysteriously unalived themselves talking about these kind of things, about, like conspiracies in TikTok. One of them was talking about Diddy ended up unaliving themselves, and the other one was talking about like Clinton or something, which we all know, ooh, the Clintons. But
yeah,
so we got to be careful.
Yeah, I think you're right on point, man. They just can't control it, and it gives voice to the everyday person, and I think that's what YouTube used to be. And then they crammed down all the censorship on that platform, and now you're having
Let's make YouTube great again.
Yeah, I wish. I think those days are long gone, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But anyways, the last thing I wanted to cover was the recent conversion of some celebrity names to Christendom, more of the Catholic variety. And there was a great post by Val Owens, who's somebody I've interacted with over the years, and in respect some of his truth seeking. And I wanted to share it here. As I wait and pray, I'm seeing more and more posts on Kanye, Russell Brand, and Candace Owens. These are the same posts that turned Kanye completely away from Christianity, along with greedy pastors. But Russell and Candace are on this path. In the video below, he talks about how he has tried New Age, Buddhism. He still does yoga, but right now he likes the thought of following God, not for what he can get, but how he can serve. Understand these people are not like us. Their phones ring 24/7. They are approached and called by the T.D. Jakes, Joel Osteens, and the actual Pope, and given Bible study and path. They are not watching deep YouTube videos on the differences of Christianity and Catholicism. They don't have the time you have right now to even read this post. This means inevitably, if the conviction isn't strong, they will either stray or develop their own doctrine and methods for serving their Christ. Their Christ. One thing we can say is now, in this moment, Russell and Candace are serious, just like at the time Kanye West was very serious. And now, of course, we've seen recently Kanye West falling away from the faith in a variety of ways. There's news of him seeking to start publishing his own pornography website, which is a little troubling to say the least. But it was the greed and the pastors that told Kanye that turning to Christ will get his ex-wife back. It would help him gain custody over his kids. It would solve his financial battles. They held a gigantic look what God was going to do if you tithe and spread the word and tithe more. And obviously God doesn't work like that. So now Kanye hates God and Christianity, as it failed him in all the ways he was promised. But unfortunately, this is exactly how Christianity fails a majority of people who find themselves in trouble, in a place that they can reach out and seek to connect with the Father of all, right? Our Father in heaven. But however, when we're let down by the institutions, by the doctrine, the traditions of men, these people become empowered enemies to true faith and truly seeking after righteousness as the word defines it, not as man defines it, right? And that's a very sad thing. So this is the perspective many refuse to look from. It is always, I told you he's a wolf in sheep, or no, there was a time he was very serious. Your exposés on YouTube and judgment, crooked preachers are not helping. Which one of you sin not? There has to be a better way for the religious folk to reach those in the spotlight to help guide them. Well, below is the video from a few hours ago of Russell explaining his walk and direct path to baptism. Good day. Thank you for your prayers. So, of course, Russell Brand recently coming out that he's getting baptized and looking into Christianity. Now you've had figures like Mark Wahlberg and Jonathan Rumi, who are strong proponents of the Catholic faith, being the celebrity types promoting the Hallowed app and whatnot. And so, we're in this day, an age where these celebrities are seeking out to, connect with the Almighty. Maybe they're recognizing that there is a truth in the Word of God, the Scriptures, and a faith in the Messiah, Yeshua. But the truth is that there are so many actual wolves in sheep clothing, these pastors that are in it for the money, in it for the greed, in it for the notoriety, that are connecting with these individuals. And there's a hypocrisy element that is then turning them away and turning them against a legitimate, real faith, right? And so we can only hope that these, guys like Russell Brand, who could be misinformation, people, or trying to lead people astray, but also they could be just a guy who's been put into a position seeking after truth, decides to get baptized and follow after Christianity a while, and they have this opportunity to actually dive deep and see the difference between these traditions of men and what we're being taught in the Scriptures. And we can only hope for the best. And sometimes when people assume the worst about individuals, they're in it for wickedness, they're in it to mislead us all. And I've spoken in the past about how we have to be careful of the truther movement that leads us away from the ultimate truth, right? And so it's a really weird dichotomy, and it is current news because we see them coming out talking about baptism, talking about looking into the Scriptures in regards to Christianity and Jesus, as they've come to know him. But man, I think there's an opportunity here as well for people who are well grounded in a faith that is not based on the traditions and doctrines of men and the 40,000 denominations that are all split and fragmented, or these institutions that have been proven to have nefarious agendas, to have been proven to hide the truths of the Scripture rather than uplift them. We have a time now that it's more important than ever to let your light shine, not in just the things that you say, but the life that you live, so that you're not a hypocrite, so that you're not like these pastors and people that promised Kanye all these things, and then eventually he was disenchanted and then turned away. And now, I think it's a very interesting thing. And we're seeing in the world today, not only an opportunity, but also a lot of tests. So that's what I wanted to say on that. And with that said, that's all the news for this week, Jeremiah. Hope you guys enjoyed.
Well, thank you, Jake, for another great current news as always. Now I want to share the Skiba family book bundle with you guys, so check out this promo.
We are proud to announce the Skiba Family Book Bundle, where you will receive a signed copy of Rob Skiba's best-selling book, Babylon Rising, a signed copy of Sheila Skiba's best-selling expose, The Protocol That Kills, and a signed copy of Jeremiah Skiba's book, Never Got to Say Goodbye. There's only a limited number left, so make sure you click the link in the description below.
So you will get all three of these books right here, and I even had some of these certificates of authenticity made, which are really cool. So links will be down in the description if you're interested, and I think it's about that time for an all-new OPA'S Corner. Take it away, OPA.
Mein Hut, der hat 3 Ecken. 3 Ecken hat mein Hut. Und hat nicht 3 Ecken, dann ist es nicht mein Hut.
The strange, the bizarre.
Oh yeah.
The unexpected. These are the kinds of subjects a man named Robert L. Ripley challenged us to
believe it or not.
Believe it or not, you.
Wally, believe it or not.
Believe it or not.
Believe it! You're a loony.
Contrary to popular belief, the fur of polar bears is actually transparent and appears white because it reflects light. Underneath their fur, they have black skin to help absorb and retain heat in their cold Arctic habitats. Believe it or not. Baby flamingos are born gray, not pink. Believe it or not. A woodpecker's tongue actually wraps all the way around its brain, protecting it from damage when it's hammering into a tree. Believe it or not. A shrimp's heart is located in its head.
Ew.
Believe it or not. Elephants suck on their trunks for comfort. Believe it or not. Wombat poop is cube-shaped. Believe it or not. A flock of flamingos is called, wait for it, a flamboyance. Fancy. Believe it or not. Forget bald eagles. The turkey was once almost named the national bird. Believe it or not. A group of owls is called a parliament. Believe it or not.
It's because they're so wise.
There are 32 muscles in a cat's ear. Believe it or not. Montana has 3 times as many cows as it does people. Believe it or not. 90% of the world's population lives above the equator. Believe it or not. Finland has more saunas than cars. Believe it or not. Mary of Mary Had a Little Lamb fame was a real person, and the song is based on a true story. Believe it or not. You can't lick your elbow. Believe it or not. Strawberries are not berries, but bananas actually are. Believe it or not. A flock of ravens is called a conspiracy. Dark stuff. Believe it or not. Turns out a dog's paw is just as unique as a human's. Good news for dog detectives. Believe it or not. A camel can drink up to 40 gallons of water in one go. That's seriously impressive. Believe it or not. It's estimated that the typical pencil has enough graphite to draw a line 35 miles long, or 20 times the length of the Golden Gate Bridge. Believe it or not. New York's Central Park is bigger than Monaco. That's right. One park is bigger than an entire country. Believe it or not. Here's a little funny and creepy fact. Not only are groups of crows called murderers, but the birds actually hold funerals for their dead. Spooky. Believe it or not. Elmer Fudd's original name was Egghead. Believe it or not.
My name is Egghead.
The longest noodle ever made is more than 10,000 feet long. That's almost 2 miles. Wonder how long it would take us to slurp that. Believe it or not. A flock of peacocks is called a party. Party hard, peacocks. Believe it or not. Did you know there's a 50,000 word novel without using the letter E? Gatsby is a lipogram, or a novel written without using a letter or letters. In the case of Gatsby, written by Ernest Vincent Wright in 1939, that letter is E. Believe it or not. No number before 1,000 contains the letter A, but there are plenty of E, I, O, U's, and Y's. Believe it or not. Bees can fly higher than 29,525 feet above sea level, according to National Geographic. That's higher than Mount Everest, the tallest mountain in the world. Believe it or not. Did you know that the world's longest pizza is a mile long? At 1.15 miles exactly, this whopping pizza was made in, you guessed it, Italy. But how? By the sweat of 250 chefs and about 4,409 pounds of flour. Believe it or not. The oldest domestic cat on record lived for 38 years. She was Cream Puff of Austin, Texas. Believe it or not. And now for the funnies. Our people are positioned on every street corner, Commander. Shall we commence with our plan to gradually eliminate these creatures? Couples retreat. We all know that wonderful feeling of sticking your head out a car window. Today's question is, how can you give your partner that kind of wind-up-your-nose bliss? Fart in their face? This was a mistake. Buckingham Palace, 11:30 a.m., and the tourists gather to watch the changing of the guard. Okay, boys, that'll be enough. We don't allow any gunplay in this town. Fish thrill rides. Ironically, he's been falling asleep in front of the TV a lot more since his favorite networks went woke. We need you to settle an argument for us. Which is more adorable, a cat on a Roomba or a dog on a skateboard?
Cat on the Roomba.
Don't you roll your eyes at me, young man. Under the couch. I always find the best toys here. Special chef's surprise. What's so surprising about a bologna sandwich? Wait until you get your bill. I like how you take initiative to find paperwork to sit on. You're a real go-sitter, Johnson. Thank you, sir. Saloon scenes on other planets. What are you looking at? New safety regulations roil the unicorn industry. On his day off, the Grim Reaper loved making parking meters expire. Click, 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 click. Through the hoop, Bob! Through the hoop! Pest control. I'm afraid your termites have a list of demands. About your symptoms, I have a theory. In his later years, Superman found work as a security officer at O'Hare International Airport. Turn around. Okay, you're good to go. And nice tattoo of a spider on your stomach. If Spirit owned the space shuttle. I'm sorry, but your bag exceeds the weight limit. Also, I see you're holding your helmet. You're only allowed one carry-on. Oh, and would you like to purchase oxygen? Bud's Erasure Shop. Just heft that baby in your arms a little. I guarantee you, whenever they draw in ink or pencil, that sucker will wipe out any characters that come around. I hate these bridal showers. The not fun whatsoever house. Ard dogs. The Bribe of Frankenstein. Tick, tock, tick, tock, tick, tock, tick, tock.
Gotta be a Peter Pan fan.
Day old, Day old bread and we wanna go home. I'm experiencing a partial eclipse of the stage. Custer's first stand. Is that enough? They're gonna be walking up any second. I really have to go. Oh, come on. Everything on the internet is true. Abraham Lincoln, 1862. Mona Lisa and Leonardo da Vinci, Florence, 1504. Photographer, Keith Richards. And that concludes another OPA'S Corner.
Mein Hut, der hat 3 Ecken. 3 Ecken hat mein Hut. Und hat nicht 3 Ecken, dann ist es nicht mein Hut.
OPA'S Corner is now available on my own YouTube channel. Like, share, and subscribe.
Thank you, Oppa, for another great OPA'S Corner. Now a word from our good friend JJ. Are you tired of living in constant pain? Do you feel like you've tried every CBD product on the market with no relief? Look no further than JJ's Natural CBD Rub. When I was diagnosed with degenerative disc disease, this was the only product that completely took my pain away. Working with JJ has been a dream come true, and his products have completely changed my life. Don't just take my word for it. Visit JJ's website, jjcbdrub.com, and read hundreds of testimonials from people whose lives have been changed by all of JJ's amazing products. And now, as a Skiba News Nation exclusive, you can get $50 off a 3-pack special of JJ's Natural CBD Rub by texting CBD to 920-382-7720. Don't suffer in silence any longer. Take control of your pain today with JJ's Natural CBD Rub. Again, text CBD to 920-382-7720 for an exclusive discount and start feeling the relief you deserve. The links are in the description below. And there it is, folks. Anyways, it's time for an all-new History's Mysteries. So today's History's Mysteries, we're going to be talking about the mini reboots of Mark Zuckerberg, aka the Zuck. So lately I've been seeing these memes that I'm about to pull up now. Oppa, if you could pull up the first one. I've been seeing these all over the internet. So it just got me thinking I gotta cover this particular topic. So with that being said, I mean, let's all agree that he looks like an alien or reptilian or something's wrong there. So let's play this first clip, the mini reboots of Mark Zuckerberg.
If you rewind back a few years, Mark Zuckerberg was one of the most hated men in America.
You can't sell my privacy!
But you may be saying to yourself, who cares? He's a billionaire. I wouldn't care if people hated me as a billionaire. Aren't haters a good thing? Well, maybe a little hate is good, but when you're one of the richest public billionaires in the world like Mark Zuckerberg, if enough people hate you, they will eventually tear you down, take everything you have, and throw you in prison. And you don't have to look far to see examples of this happening. Because if you didn't know, here's how America works. In America, you have prosecutors, judges, and so on that are all elected officials. That means the only way these people can move up in their career is by pleasing the public. That means if they want more fame, if they want more status, if they want more recognition, if they want to just keep their job, they have to tear down people that the public hates. That's essentially their role in society. Their job is not to seek justice or the truth. There is no such thing as innocent until proven guilty. All of that is just an illusion in America, just to make people feel like they live in a fair society. In America, if people hate you enough, these elected officials will find one way or another to throw you in prison. And newsflash, throwing anyone in prison is ridiculously easy. Why do you think we have thousands upon thousands of laws? Why do you think we live in a country where the average person commits 3 felonies a day?
An average busy professional in this country gets up in the morning, gets the kids off to school, goes to work, uses the telephone, there we go, federal offense, or email, has meetings, or works on a prospectus or a bank loan or whatever, goes home, puts the kids to bed, has dinner, reads the newspaper, and goes to sleep, and has no idea that in the course of that day, he or she has very likely committed 3 felonies that some ambitious creative prosecutor can pick out of that day's activities and put into an indictment if the feds so want.
The reason why we have so many laws is that so you can be taken down at a moment's notice if it serves the powers that be. Now put yourself in the shoes of a billionaire and you'll see the problem that Mark Zuckerberg has. Think about all the prosecutors, the judges, the senators, the congressmen that are just salivating at the mouth for an opportunity to be the hero that takes down this evil villain. If Mark Zuckerberg doesn't repair his reputation soon, if he doesn't make himself seem at least somewhat likable, at least somewhat human, think about all the stuff the government is gonna do to him. They can fine Meta, they can regulate Meta, they can claim that it's a monopoly and break up Meta, they can ban his apps, and ultimately, they can throw him in prison if they really want to.
Here's what everybody's been trying to tell you. I say this gently.
I love
Your
this guy.
user agreement sucks.
But shockingly, Mark Zuckerberg seems to actually be pulling it off. He's actually managing to make himself somewhat likable.
I'm gonna have you right here so there's a little bit of light in the background.
Okay. Yeah. Alright, cool.
He says when he looks at the four of you, he's boxing heavy.
Can you circle all the traffic lights, please? You actually did it. That is very impressive performance.
See, Bill Gates had the same problem. He was once the most hated man in America in the 90s, except he fixed it by making himself look like a generous philanthropist that we talked about in this video. Mark Zuckerberg seems to be taking a different approach, and it looks like it's working even better than good old Billy Gates. In fact, it's working so well that the hashtag #HotZuckSummer was actually trending online. But what you may not know is that this is not the first time Mark Zuckerberg has tried to rebrand himself and repair his public image. In fact, he's gone through a few software updates before. He's gone through presidential candidate Zuck, philanthropist Zuck, and maybe even the strangest version, meat smoking Zuck. The difference is that every single one of these rebrands crashed and burned within a few days. So what changed this time? And if you're an aspiring billionaire or public figure, what can you learn from Mark's successes and failures when it's finally time for your turn to take the throne?
So now we're going to be talking about how Mark Zuckerberg repaired his public image. So let's play this next clip.
Mark Zuckerberg has always had a really hard time being likable. As far back as his days in Harvard, he was known as being the weird super dork who listed stuff like defeating nemesis as a personal interest. He created a site called Face Mash after getting turned down by a girl he likes. It was a website that compared pictures of Harvard students to farm animals and asked people to choose who was more attractive. It blew up, but it just made people hate him even more. But once Facebook blew up, the hate for Zuckerberg just kept rising to new and new levels. In 2014, it came out that Facebook had secretly carried out psychological tests on more than 70,000 users without their consents. In 2016, there was all the controversy between Facebook and the presidential election. And 2 years after that, the Cambridge Analytica scandal broke, revealing how Facebook used private user data to run its targeted ads. That same year, they were also accused of allowing Myanmar's military officials to publish posts that incited genocide against the country's Muslim minority. Zuckerberg was scolded in front of Congress that same year, which is where we got these amazing robot pictures.
Mr. Zuckerberg, would you be comfortable sharing with us the name of the hotel you stayed in last night?
No.
And less than a year later in 2019, Facebook was fined $5 billion for violating user privacy. And as Facebook's founder and CEO, Zuckerberg looked like the genius behind every single one of these scandals. So needless to say, there were many reasons to hate him. On top of that, the stuff he does in his private life doesn't help either. Like the time he went surfing with a face caked in sunscreen to avoid the paparazzi. Or the time he sued native Hawaiian families to force them into selling their land to him at auction. Also that he can build a massive mansion in an underground doomsday bunker that he barely ever uses. It also doesn't help that he would turn into a sweaty, incoherent mess every time someone asked him a difficult question in public. It's like the guy just wanted to be hated. But in reality, Zuckerberg probably couldn't help acting like this awkward robot. After all, you don't just build Facebook by being a normal human being. In his 20 years of fame and wealth, he managed to somehow piss off literally everyone. And by the mid-2010s, Zuck could feel it in the air. He could feel that if he didn't change something soon, the masses would start sharpening their pitchforks and lighting their torches. And this is when we started getting introduced to the many cringy sides of Zuck.
So sorry, Charlie's gonna help me with this one. The many cringy styles of Zuck. So some pretty crazy stuff. Now for this next clip, we're gonna call it One Man, Many Zucks. Isn't that right, Charlie? He said, yeah.
So you're Mark Zuckerberg, and right now, you're what we call Factory Settings Zuck. Factory Settings Zuck is a Zuck with zero personality, zero people skills, and even less charisma. But with a few software updates, maybe you could change that. So you start thinking. You start looking at the other billionaires the public seems to love, and suddenly something becomes very clear. You don't necessarily need to be a nice person for people to like you. You just need to have that bad boy personality. So you decide that instead of becoming an outgoing people person, everyone already thinks you're a bad person, so why not lean into your bad reputation instead? So you went all in and relaunched yourself as the new Devil May Care Zuck. You did a bunch of edgy stuff like refusing to get up for work before noon, and even though it did help you look a little less bland and boring, it didn't really do much to help your reputation. You needed to try something different, so you went through a little media training, got comfortable in front of the camera, and launched whatever this was.
Yeah, someone asked me, do I smoke meat? Smoking meat. Smoking these meats. Smoking meats earlier in the day. Smoking these meats, just set the charcoal up and you set the wood chips up, and then smoking meats, grilling meats, good smoky flavor. Smoke a brisket for like 12 hours. You smoke lemon chicken, smoke salmon, you'll love it. Bison sirloin, ribs and sausage, so I'm looking forward to that.
This time, instead of trying to focus on your likability, you decided to become more relatable instead. Sure, you still had zero people skills and zero personality, but none of that mattered as long as you could convince average everyday Americans that you were just like them. And how would you do that? Would you make it look like you drove an affordable car just like everyone else? No, you needed something more American than that. Would you show yourself sitting in the front row of a Lakers game? No, basketball is American, but that's still a little too unrelatable. Would you show yourself doing grocery shopping at Walmart? Nope, you needed something even more everyday American than that. So you launched this campaign. Ah yes, Farmer Zuck. The unlikable billionaire who was really just another homegrown down-to-earth American like everyone else. And for a while it worked. People started warming up to the Zuck that bought off their cows and toured family farms. But then this story broke. And suddenly all the street cred you got for looking like you cared about everyday Americans went out the door. People saw straight through your lies. And this meant that it was back to the drawing board for you and your PR team. Over the next few years, you would go through all sorts of personality rebrands. There was Philanthropist Zuck, who donated hundreds of millions of dollars to public schools, and the wannabe presidential candidate Zuck, who maybe thought that your strange behavior would make more sense as a politician. There was even Super Sorry Zuck, the guy who constantly apologized for everything in his company, but never did anything to change it.
In 2003, Zuckerberg apologized in the Harvard Crimson for any harm done after his website FaceMash asked users to rate people's hotness. 3 years later, Zuckerberg said Facebook, quote, really messed this one up following user complaints that the newly launched news feed invaded their privacy.
Zuckerberg apologized once again in 2007 for an uproar over the company's beacon advertising system, saying, I know we can do better.
It seemed like every time you or Facebook faced a new scandal, you would shed your personality like a snakeskin to go on with the next rebrand. And this latest version of Zuck is no exception. Only this time it might actually be working. Introducing Alpha Zuck.
So there are indeed many Zucks. I believe he's just like a made-up character at this point because he's gone through so many different phases, and that's what we're going to be talking about in this next one, which is what they just hinted at, Alpha Zuck. So that's our next clip.
This new and improved Alpha Zuck is into extreme sports, MMA, raising cattle, and building off-the-grid homesteads for his family, ironically on the same land that he sued Native Hawaiians for. This new version of Zuck isn't afraid to get into a fight. Alpha Zuck put Elon Musk into his place by getting Musk to chicken out of their fight altogether.
Zuck versus Elon fire.
No, he's checking out. What? That's
I don't think he's checking it out.
Yeah, no, he's checking out.
Do you think so?
Yeah. Fuck.
Maybe
fuck,
he's listening.
Zuck.
Alpha Zuck is getting on all the popular podcasts like Lex Fridman and Joe Rogan. And by the way, getting on popular podcasts is an extremely important tool in the billionaire's toolkit for getting the public to like you. This is because usually the only exposure billionaires get to the masses is when there's some giant scandal about them. The masses never get to see these billionaires for extended periods of time and actually get to hear them talk. That's why if you're a public-facing billionaire, crucial that you get on popular podcasts to humanize yourself. Why do you think Elon Musk has always gone on Joe Rogan? Or why Jeff Bezos just followed in Zuck's footsteps and got on the Lex Fridman podcast as well? Or why the Pfizer CEO also got on the Lex Fridman podcast? When you spend an hour or two watching someone express themselves and their fears and insecurities and opinions, even if they're awkward and don't do well on camera, unless they severely mess up, it's kinda hard for you not to like them or at least see them as human. Alpha Zuck is also the MMA bro who doesn't watch TV because it puts him into a beta state. But the biggest difference between this Zuck and all the other versions before him isn't just that he's getting ripped and doing cool stuff. It's the fact that it seems like he finally stopped trying so hard to get everyone to like him. Or at least that's what it seems. On the surface, it looks like this new public image is Zuck finally finding himself. But if you dig deeper into this new persona, the more you realize that it may not be all that authentic. Just like the previous versions of Zuck, this could very well be just another carefully crafted persona, while Facebook goes through another massive scandal.
So is he trying to be based? I don't know. But for this last clip, in this little montage, I'm going to call it a robot in cool guy clothes, because that's what he is.
Take a look at all the traits that make this new Zuckerberg different from factory setting Zuck. He's confident and outspoken, he's showing off his masculinity and feats of strength, he's being controversial by picking fights with fellow tech CEOs like Elon Musk, he's building homesteads and raising cattle, he's telling everyone that TV is turning their brains into mush. Take away the fact that he's Mark Zuckerberg, and this just sounds like the exact playbook of every top G Chad on the internet right now. And that's probably where the reality of Zuck's new public image lies. He is just following the trend. Right now, stuff like health, masculinity, traditional lifestyles, and creating controversy are all blowing up online. And this new Zuck is taking off every single one of those boxes, like a more tame version of Andrew Tate mixed with Liver King. And hey, if it's true that Zuckerberg is finally coming into his own and finding his stride in life, more power to him. He does look genuinely more happy than ever before. But let's not forget, while everyone is distracted with this new likable version of Zuck,
here's some information from a whistleblower who came before the Senate, testified under oath in public. He worked for you. It's a senior executive. So, for example, this is girls between the ages of 13 and 15 years old. 37% of them reported that they had been exposed to nudity on the platform unwanted in the last 7 days. 24% said that they had experienced unwanted sexual advances they'd been propositioned in the last 7 days. 17% said they had encountered self-harm content pushed at them in the last 7 days.
That's right. At the same time, Facebook and Instagram are getting caught up in another huge scandal. This time, they're accused of pushing child predators onto underage users. But who's gonna talk about that while they can talk about Zuckerberg's walkout at the UFC instead? So is this new version of Zuck just another carefully crafted PR campaign? I mean, he's clearly putting in a lot of effort into this new image. Just look at all his carefully crafted Instagram posts. When you're as powerful as him, none of these posts are just by accident or casual. Each of them is perfectly curated to show a new aspect of his personality. But again, on the other hand, Zuck does seem genuinely happier and more authentic than he's ever been. Maybe he's finally embracing his masculinity. If I had to guess, it's probably a mix of both, which is probably why it's actually working this time. So what is the lesson you can learn from this if you have plans on being a big public figure? Well, once you're in that position where everyone is waiting to tear you down, you gotta tone down that hatred by humanizing yourself. Get on some podcasts, show off your other interests outside of work. If you don't have any interests outside of work, you better find some. And most importantly, don't forget to show off some carefully curated flaws in your personality. We think that showing that we're perfect is the way to go. But the problem with that is that if you make people think that you're perfect, it just builds resentment. Because the masses aren't perfect, so choose some flaws that aren't going to give your ops an edge on you, and casually bring it up in conversations on podcasts and so on.
So I thought that was super interesting and funny, and I wanted to share that with you guys. But I got one more clip with Zuck, and it shows what fuels him, and that's Sweet Baby Ray's. So let's play this clip.
What are you guys making for dinner? Sweet Baby Ray's barbecue sauce, I hope. Delicious. But hopefully for Canadian Thanksgiving you get to eat a lot of Sweet Baby Ray's barbecue sauce. That is going on the ribs.
Sweet Baby Ray's.
Sweet Baby Ray's. Sweet Baby Ray's. Sweet Baby Ray's is very good.
Sweet Baby Ray's.
Sweet Baby Ray's. We have just applied the Sweet Baby Ray's. Sweet Baby Ray's. Sweet Baby Ray's. Maybe throw some Sweet Baby Ray's on the ribs and take it from there. She's waiting for her ribs. I mean, she knows what's coming, and Sweet Baby Ray's. So that's pretty good. Ray's. Sweet Baby Ray's. Maybe throw some Sweet Baby Ray's.
So is it fair to say that he likes Sweet Baby Ray's? So that's all I got for Zuck. What are your thoughts, Jake?
Yeah, it looks to me like somebody has a well-paid publicist that is helping them navigate the turmoil of being a very rich public figure that also might have some awkward, geeky tendencies, but wants to rebrand themselves into, you know, something the public likes, right? And it really is telling about how public personas can be curated, and it shows us that no matter how cool somebody seems, they could just have a fantastic publicist and totally be a different person at home.
Yep.
So.
Yep. So I do have one more clip for our History's Mysteries, even though it's neither one. It's kind of a funny clip. And it's my latest prank on scammers. And it's called Ligma. And you'll understand why. So enjoy volume 3 of me pranking the scammers.
So just to provide you with the best possible details, do you have any kind of health insurance through the marketplace?
Yes, I think so.
Oh, that's great. So are you getting the additional benefits along with your marketplace?
I'm not quite sure.
You are not sure?
I'm not
So-
positive. No, my wife does it
No.
all.
Oh, no problem. No problem. We will help you out with that. Just to see you are eligible for the additional benefits provided by the federal government. How old are you?
I'm 60.
You are 60 years young. And in this age, are you having any Medicare, Medicaid, or any employer coverage?
I don't know. My wife handles all that.
Just marketplace.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. So you are the perfect candidate for the additional benefits. So do you know what's your health insurance company name, like Embedded, Blue Cross Blue Shield, United Healthcare? So we will help you out with that.
I think it's United Healthcare.
United Healthcare. That's great. So United Healthcare is providing additional benefits along with their marketplace plan. So what's your zip code down there, just to see how much additional benefits and subsidies you are qualifying for?
Sure. 75056.
056. I got it. And how do you pronounce your first and last name, just to address you properly?
Okay, it's Ligma. That's my first name, Ligma. And then my
And
last
your
name
last
is
name?
Anus.
ANUS. And is that?
Excuse me?
Okay, I got it. So,
Can you repeat
yeah.
it back to me
It's
so I
Ligma.
make sure?
It's
Ligma. I'm sorry.
Ligma Anus.
Yes, Ligma Anus. Alrighty? That's what I thought.
Got him. What do you think, Jake? Do you think I did a good job on Ligma?
Oh man, some of those guys need to be taught a lesson for how much they take advantage of people. And
He would have totally took all my
that
money.
route, he would have taken it all.
Yeah, you would have. If I was really a 60-year-old man, so I just mess with them as much as I can. So I hope you guys enjoyed my latest prank, volume 3 of pranking the scammers, and this week's History's Mysteries. Now I hope you got some memes for me, Jake.
Yeah, I got a few.
Meme me up.
I know you're a little younger than I am. I've adopted the attitude of the great Negro Leagues, went on to become Negro.
Meme me up.
All right, this week we're going to feature some pretty cool cars that OPA sent over to me and a few other things. I think this is an AI-generated image, but this is what you do when you're really planning to go and live in the wilderness, right?
Or go on tour, man.
Heavy duty.
Let's get one of those and go on tour.
That looks awesome. Even though it's AI-generated, right? Well, there's some of these that aren't, and they're still super cool. Here's a picture of the future birthplace of Captain James T. Kirk, Riverside, Iowa.
That's fun.
March 22nd, 2028. All right, so here's the great delusion, right? Plug in your electric vehicle into an outlet that's plugged in the power grid that is being fueled by exactly what you claim to hate.
Oh man, I saw this TikTok, and it was a Tesla that got stuck in a car wash. The battery started to update during the car wash, and it was stuck there, and it had like a long line of cars behind him, all hitting the back of his car. It's crazy.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, I've seen pictures of people charging their Tesla with a gas generator. It's pretty insane.
Defeats the purpose.
Here's a cool 1931 Rumpler RUV. The Rumpler was built and developed between 1926 and 1931. Man, that's such a heavy-duty vehicle. Like, looks like a boat though. It's like
Or a
you
tank.
could drive it into the water.
Yeah. I think I'm gonna name my firstborn, boy or girl, Rumpler. I love that name. This is my son slash daughter, Rumpler. Rumpler Skiba.
That's cool. Unique name there. This one, of course, has its kind of liberal underpinnings of, you can't trust your Google search. But I think it's funny. Before social media, I just thought everything was science-based. They're making fun of people that gain information through social media, but I think it's a kind of a double-edged sword here, this meme.
Yep.
It's true. It turns out that not all the science backs up the science that they claim is science-based.
True.
The steel spring tire created as a substitute tire because of rubber shortage in Germany in 1917. It's like the most hardcore, like, steampunk tire I've ever seen.
I bet it lasted forever. Never get a flat.
It's cool. Yeah, until it rained, right? And then it rusted away.
True.
Just because y'all are Texas folks, check out Texas superimposed over Europe. Pretty eye-opening.
Yep. Everything's bigger in Texas. Better in Texas.
One more place superimposed. Australia over continental USA. It's pretty crazy to think about. Did you know that Australia is the second least densely populated nation, but it's also a continent in the whole world, and the first is Mongolia. So the amount of people to land is very, very low density, right? And so I've always thought it was interesting how Australia truly is this wilderness, right?
Didn't they start as a prison? It started as a prison, I thought. Way back in the day.
Yeah, with the British colonization of the world. Yep.
That's crazy.
The penal colony, but they would send religious dissidents there. So you have a really interesting crop of people that broke away from the Catholic Church and the mainstream kind of Anglican Church that were sent there, and it's some interesting history to look into. But check out this like Batmo van.
I love that so much.
That was pretty cool. Dream Cars, the Batmobile.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah. Content warning, but this one was pretty funny. Pfizer, trust us with your penis. Trust our beep. Yeah,
that's crazy.
It's so true. Like, people will trust these pharmaceutical companies with their witchcraft that'll stimulate your organs, right? But then they're like, well, hey, it makes sense if you trust us with that significant member of your body. Trust us with injecting our into your bloodstream, right?
Yeah.
It's so crazy. And here we go. Here's the Louisiana National Guard on its way to help Texas secure the border.
Oh yeah, we could take some of those for sure. Put them in the water.
Battle gators. Police gators.
They run pretty fast, surprisingly.
Got a new car. The chicks love it. Nice. Build better outside of the system, guys. Chickens are a great source of a great breakfast every morning, right? All right. And here's the last picture. This is when you're trying to go camping on a budget. You got a little moped and a one-person pool camper. It's super cool looking.
I do like that. It's pretty cool.
Sweet. All right. Thank you, Opa, for your submissions, and hope you guys enjoyed this week.
All right, Jake, thank you for another great current news and memes as always. Opa, thank you for another great Opa's Corner. I hope you guys enjoyed today's History's Mystery segment, and we hope you enjoyed today's episode as a whole. So stay awake, not woke, subscribe, and stay tuned. If you like what we do here on Skiba News Nation, please like and subscribe, and also share with others so that we can grow the biggest truth-seeking community on the internet. Huge shout out to all of our Patreon supporters. We couldn't do this show without you, so I just wanted to say thank you. And if you want to help support us, go to patreon.com/Skiba News Nation.